granddad was a really keen sort of cine film buff, you know, as a lot of people were, I suppose, you know, 60s and 70s. So that was kind of around a lot. But I'll be honest, you know, it was really by coming across properly, taking it seriously, was coming across some cameras that a friend of ours, I mean, you know, in the end it done for him, but when we'd first sort of living together, a bunch of lads on an estate in West Ham, he was a friend from football and he'd fallen into the brown and he was kind of going out robbing, you know, and how he ran so fast from these shops, you know, as a smack at it, I do not know, but he did, and he was getting kind of high-end equipment, and he's come around the estate and go, oh look, I've got this camera, yeah, and I want 30 quid, you know, you go, well, I'll have that for 30 quid, and it was like top of the range Canon camera or something, you know. And we all kids who was in my flat, we all bought cameras, you know. Most didn't even kind of use them or had no interest, but for me it was like, wow, that's a door completely open now. And that was sort of very early 80s. So then so I've had a good camera and I've also got an interest in, I suppose, the Vietnam War photography of Tim Page and Don McCullen, and so I've got that interest, and then Ouija and all that sort of social documentary photography of Eugene Smith, you know, in the States, and so I've got an interest in all that, and I suppose it's like how all those things go along, you know, bob along and then get to a point and hit a sort of, you know, a change point, and that was me sort of going off.
What were you first taking pictures of them when you got this camera?
Demos and, you know, all that stuff that was going on, well, in London, and then. Hello. Okay. So again, you know, it all crosses over. I become politicised. Obviously, there's stuff that was going on in London that was happening up here, across the country, be it the miners. You know, we had the Wapping Prince strike and CND and the NHS, you know, and so, you know, there's a demo every other week. And I found that, I guess, more than anything, I could use a camera to be closer to the front and have a bit of a tear up and use that as an excuse for being at the front. Whereas normally, you know, your experience at football would be if you was at the front and, you know, you'd be the first one to get nicked. But in those days, and again, that's changed definitely, but you almost kind of excused. You almost, you know, treat as if you was in no man's land with a camera. Now you'd be attacked by both sides, I would imagine. So, you know, it was a kind of excuse, but also, you know, I had this interest and I weren't particularly very good, or, you know, I hadn't trained, but it was just one of those things, doing it kind of on the street in situ. And so, yeah, I would say demos, you know, that out and out. And, you know, so it will be that I've got, you know, lots of stuff from, you know, that's like Scargill being in London and Trevor Huddleston, you know, and anti-apartheid marches and all that sort of stuff, you know, and Trafalgar. So all that really was leading to this, what was a forerunner of this, and continues, you know, my next exhibition is The End of Apartheid, covering the elections, which will be the 20th anniversary in April. The first 3 elections in South Africa, and I'd been involved in anti-apartheid, and so that was another one where I just went, I've got to be there, and I'll take pictures. And now, 20 years later, people will see the pictures. I had the great fortune of also being Primal Scream's photographer, so I'd come back from these momentous occasions like that and then go off on tour and lose my mind for a month, you know, with Primal Scream. And then when that got boring, then I'd go off to Afghanistan, you know, and when that got too crazy, then I was, so, you know, a good position to be in, and a you know, an amazing time as well, you know.
Constantly dodging bullets, both.
Yeah, well, you know, there is that argument, what was the most dangerous to your health? You know, I think you all know what. Anyone else want an olive? I feel rude. No, I'm all right, thanks. Thank you very much.
No, he's here.
Are you any cockles?
Right, olive break.
Hey?
Olive break.
Okay, yeah, that's good, yeah. You see how times have changed? And you do that in front of everyone, look.
You did say, shall we get some olives and eat them?
Yeah, and they're wonderful.
Yeah.
I get high with them. So,
Primal Scream's photographer for 20 years. So you went to Afghanistan. What's been happening like the last 10 years? Because that's, Primal Scream, that was 20 years ago.
yeah, and I in terms of music, did a lot around dance music, sort of when that went kind of, I suppose, global, the Creamfields and that sort of stuff. And then a lot in Palestine, from the political sort of side, a lot of Palestine. Afghanistan a couple of times, elections, Somalia, where I got kidnapped, and was the last person in as the Ethiopians were to invade, and got targeted by the opposition and, kind of told to leave really before I got killed. But it was, another interesting experience, to say the least. And
what is it about going to these hotspots, Grant, that drives that inside of you that drives you?
I mean, listen, you could be really flippant and go, well, it's exciting and the rest of it, but look, the truth is, it is that thing of like, you feel like, in situations like that, well, I do anyway, I feel like every second is like living a lifetime. Because you're constantly on that edge of not knowing what's going to happen at any second, which none of us do. None of us. I mean, people who are in venues. Look what happened in Glasgow the other week. And a helicopter lands on a pub and kills people. We don't know really, but I guess you could say in situations like that, you're at far greater risk. You're closer to chance, going completely the wrong way, and it just is that. Feeling living every second and kind of feeling it, it's a tangible thing. So that's the draw, that's the addictive thing that I guess a lot of journalists, photographers, photojournalists, people who cover conflict certainly will say the same. There is that draw. But, kind of just interested in, I guess, global politics and have been involved. It's not like, well, I kind of almost went as a voyeur and would, like I was a journalist. Really, it's never been like that for me. I've always, I guess, been biased in a way because I cared about something there and I went to photograph it. And the same with South Africa. And I guess you try and be as impartial as possible just as a photographer. But why are you there in the first place? Because you want to be part of this. In that particular time, this wonderful celebration. Mm-hmm. And it was, the greatest, I think the best picture that I've ever taken in my life was in Johannesburg the day that de Klerk conceded. And I went to sort of the celebration and, I mean, the greatest party ever on earth, that I could imagine. And that, I guess, mixing the whole thing with music and being in the spotlight to some extent, it's like, it's hard to stop. I mean, that's a reality. It's really hard to stop because...
That sounds like an addiction, doesn't it?
Well, it is in a way. It is because what's the alternative? Like if you're, say you on a bit of downtime and it's very quiet and then you sat at home and it's like, fuck, it's boring, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I just cannot chill out, and that's it. I accept that. I cannot chill out. And even now, even though I'm sort of, I guess, really interested in just showing my archive of 25 years plus, and hundreds of thousands of pictures, and kind of history as well of our times, both cultural and sort of political. There isn't a day goes by where I go, it might be in the morning with the World Service on and I go, oh, I've got to go Central African Republic. I've got to go. And then I'm looking, and then suddenly I'm on kayak and then looking at flights, and then like, what am I doing? You know, I've got an exhibition coming up. What you do? But I just kind of can't stop, because in an ideal, for me, I would be able to just go, right, I want to go and cover that. But that actually, even as a career choice, if you want to put it that way, i.e. making a living for it, i.e. paying your bills, this isn't really possible anymore anyway. There's a hell of a lot more people doing it. There's a lot less money around in any sort of publishing sense, and everybody's got a camera on their phone anyway and can take decent pictures. So why would anyone send a photographer somewhere? Because instantly a photograph is available to news networks or on the spot, from a citizen, and doesn't cost them anything. So, that's kind of changed forever.
Yeah. Quite different from when you worked with James Brown at Loaded for a little while. Yeah,
well, that again was just a sort of another life change in a way, because that got me into the publishing world. And yeah, there was such a sort of maverick approach as well. It totally matched how I was about anything I did, and it was a very sort of perfect marriage, really. And I've always tried to take the harder edge stories in, and I'd have to sort of crowbar them in sometimes, but cover some pretty, a lot of people think Loaded, maybe what it became, this girl sting, and but actually wasn't. There was great writing, and people actually just living the life, which was more to the point. I mean, some of the stories that we do, I mean, be unheard of now. It will never happen again. I mean, it really wouldn't happen again.